Okay, good morning everyone. Shalom Aleichem, Bruchim Abam. We're continuing in Mishnah Berura, Daf HaShavua, Siman Kuf Mem Ches. Im Ein Kemach, Ein Torah. Let's see if this Siman has anything to do with that. Okay, Siman Kuf Mem Ches. Shelo Yafshit Shleil Tzibur HaTeva. The Shleil Tzibur cannot strip the teva. What does that mean? It says, the shel tzibur cannot be mafshit the teva publicly so long as they're in shul. This comes from the Gemara in Saita Daf Lametes. What does this mean? Perish Rashi. Shohayu regilim lahavi sefer Torah mi bayis acher shi mishtameres bay. That is, they were accustomed to bring a Sefer Torah from a different house, that it was guarded there. V'chulu. Ad shetoirach tzibur hu lesakev sham. Until it was, meaning these are the words of Rashi, to the point that it was a tercha the tzibur to wait there. V'ayin b'fnim ba'arachayim. What does that mean? Teva, says the Mishnah Teva Perushay Aron Kaidash. In all places, the word Teva means the Arain, not the Bima. The Teva Amurakan, Shulchan, but the Teva, meaning always Teva means the Arain, but here Teva means something else. The Teva Amurakan, Shulchan Shazevatar Munach Alav Kishakarim Bay. The Shulchan that the Sefer Torah is placed on when you read it. So the Shel Tzibur is not allowed to remove the teva b'tzibor if they're in the Beis HaKnesses. Says the Mishnah Berura, shehi mishtameres bay, uparsin begadim na'im saviv hateva l'chvayda sefer Torah. They spread nice begadim around the bima in honor of the Sefer Torah. Uchsheyoytzin misham v'noitlin sefer Torah linu v'ayishem mishtamer bay. When you take it out and you put the Sefer Torah in the guarded house, the Shel Tzibur should not uncover, remove the cloths from the bima. In other words, they would spread out nice cloths on the bima while the Sefer Torah was read, and when they finished reading from the Sefer Torah, they would take off the cloths. So it's saying it's not covered for the tzibur to remove these cloths. It's a tircha de tzibura to remain there with the Sefer Torah ad sheyavshid hateva, until you uncover the teva. But rather, they should take the Sefer Torah, and the people should follow him. And they should come back to Shul, and then uncover the teva. So in other words, they would adorn the teva while they read the Sefer Torah, and it's a tircha de tzibura to do so, and the whole tzibur should have to wait for the shel tzibur to do it in public. So they should take the Sefer Torah and put it back in its bayis shemesh tamer boy, and then after that they could remove all the adornments from the bima when they get a chance. Okay, Siman Kuf Mem Tes. The tzibur should not leave the shul until they put the Sefer Torah away. Now we had before that really you're not allowed to leave until at the end of Ashrei Uvalat Tzion. Did we not? That one should not leave the shul until the end of Ashrei Uvalat Tzion. Where do we have? Yeah, in Siman Kuf Lamed Beis, Sif Beis, Asur la'adam latseis mi Beis HaKnesses kaidem kedusha de sidra. It is prohibited to leave the shul before kedusha de sidra. So if it's asur to leave the shul, why does the mechaber need to say ein atzir Rasham latseis HaKnesses achin atzir Sefer Torah? So you want to say because it's Minhag Svard, Nusach Svard. No, there was no such thing as Nusach Svard when the Mechaber wrote the Sefer Torah. But it's right. There were those who were noiheg to, in other words, for Sfardim, that they put it back after. That's what the Mishnah Berura says. Says the Rama, umihu haga, umihu me'enam yoitzim rak yachid leslamba. So the Rama kicks in and says, no, this is then in the tzibur. The tzibur is not allowed to leave. The tzibur is not allowed to leave until they put back the Sefer Torah. But says Rama, an individual is allowed to leave. But uvalatzion, no. In other words, the Mechaber is saying that tzibur cannot leave until they put away the Sefer Torah. However, the Rama adds an individual is allowed to leave. However, as we asked before, the Mechaber said that it's asur for any individual to leave the shul before Asher V'Letzion. Question: if somebody leaves the shul before Asher V'Letzion, are they an avarian? Yeah, l'chayra yeah. L'chayra yeah. It says asur. I don't hear that. What?
You're not talking about going to the bathroom.
No, we're talking about leaving to go home, to go to work. Says the Mishnah Berura, Ad sheyatzniu she'ein zeh derech kavod laTorah she'anuch v'yachlem. It's not covered for the Torah that you should abandon it and go. Therefore, the Shulchan Aruch says later on in Siman Tav Reish Chaf Aleph, the Dirsha brings that when the whole tzibur leaves the shul in order to go to bris milah before Musaf, you need to put away the Sefer Torah before they leave. But otherwise, if you don't put away the Sefer Torah, the people are now to abandon the Sefer Torah. So the question is, what do you do for Yizkar? But the answer is, if some of the tzibur is staying, it's okay. If you have a minyan, then it would be okay.
Maybe that's why it's an Indian to cover the Sefer Torah with talitzim.
But it sounds like, that's not going to do it, Here he says, Rav Nissen Karela says, Lagabe tzibur that's yoytze b'Rosh Hashanah v'Beis HaKnesses lahafsaka. Let's say between Kriyas HaTorah and Tkiyos, you have to put the Svarim back. The Chazonish, the Stipler, would put the Sefer Torah back. I'm saying in a shul that they have a kiddush, before the Tkiyos. So the Rav Nissen Karel says you need to put the Sefer Torah back. The Stipler and the Chazonish, the minhag was to put the Sefer Torah back. Here he brings the minhag ha'olam is not to put the Sefer Torah back. Some want to answer that everybody knows you're not abandoning the Sefer Torah because you're coming right back. Okay, interesting. And what about...
He says in Rashonim, is that you as opposed to in by Voltzion, where he says it's Osir.
Yeah, but here we're saying that tzibur is not... Oh, I see what you're saying. Saying, Ein Atzira... Let's see the Mishnah Berura. So you want to answer that the din of leaving the Sefer Torah is only they don't have permission, but it's not outright asur. Asher v'Letzion is outright asur. The Mishnah Berura says, "Umari b'makom sheminag latznias Sefer Torah achar v'Letzion dim loy kein b'lav halchi." It has to be talking about the minhag is to put away the Sefer after Uvalatzion, because if it's before Uvalatzion, no. The imloikein belav hachi haloi asr adam latzes basically as a kam kedusha decision kam var b'siman kuf lamed beis. In other words, you're making a good point, but it won't answer the question. The question is that if Asher V'Letzion is later, right? Then of course you're not. Then it is aser because you didn't say Asher V'Tzion yet, right? So the Mishnah Berurah says it has to be talking about where we're in a place where the minhag is to put back the Sefer Torah after Asher V'Tzion, and then your diuk is important that if you leave before Asher V'Tzion, that's aser. But even then, you're not allowed to. Even then, ein rashoy to leave as a tzibor, right? The Rama says rak yachid vafilu shnayim or shlosh, even 2 or 3 people could leave. Atam the ish kavla Sefer Torah kiven shadayin roiv hatzibor sham, since the majority of the tzibor is there. V'ayin b'pri chadash. By the way, this would be a nafkamina by yizkar. In other words, by yizkar, you still have a minyan. I don't know that you have the roiv tzibor. I don't know. Does roiv tzibor stay inside or does it go out? It seems like roiv tzibor goes out. It depends what shul. Depends on the demographic of the shul. So in that case, if the roiv tzibor goes out, it's a problem. I have a minyan. A minyan is not good enough. But again, for those who are lenient on Rosh Hashanah, because let's say everybody knows you're coming back, then here also for sure everybody knows you're coming back, and a sizable crowd is staying. It's interesting. Nobody talks about Yizkar. Because I don't know. If there's a bris and everyone's leaving, okay, that's a problem. If there's a kiddush, that's a problem. Yizkar, the davening continues. The regular Seder Tefillah continues. Just as it happens to be, people go out. They don't participate in that part. It doesn't say the stipler put the Sifrei Torah back in the Aron for Yizkar. They did it for Rosh Hashanah. I doubt they did it for Yizkar. L'chara, you want the Sifrei Torah out. It's part of the Seder HaTefillah. Those tefillahs are niskan when the Sefer Torah is out. Do they cover even the Sifrei Torah during Yizkar? Who says they should cover it? By the way, most of the time they cover Sifrei Torah. They do it, I told you, ben gavra legavra, people are very makbid to cover the Sefer Torah. You're not allowed to. You're not allowed to. Unless they make a Misha Berach on Monday and Thursday, you're not allowed to. So they cover with the talis. Who says they should do it even? I don't know. Okay. Let's hold it here.
Recording stopped.